in his community, which is still in place today. Michael currently spends his time writing and developing his skills and his speaking and leadership skills, serving as Area G2 Director and as an active member of his Toastmasters Club. Michael speaks of a time during his youth when trouble found him, and a small book given to him by a stranger completely changed the direction of his life. After 40 years searching for copies of this book to share with others and finding that it was never published, he was compelled to publish it himself. To hear more about this story, please help me welcome to the podium Michael Ostgaard.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and members of the Founders District Speakers Bureau and friends. My name is Mike Ostgaard, as she said, and this book that I have is called Buck Up by Orlo. And I'm going to share a few things that I learned from this book. Have you noticed how anger seems to be all around us? People seem to be not happy. They tend to be upset because they're not getting what they want, or maybe they're entitled to something and they haven't received it. Nothing seems to work. Their car doesn't start, their iPhone doesn't work, just everything goes wrong for them. And then there are the other people. They seem to have the Midas touch. Everything they touch turns to gold. Their children are pretty. Their car starts every morning, and everything seems to go well for them. Well, I was part of that first group when I was a young man. Everything went wrong. But I grew up in a nice neighborhood. My father, when I was 10 years old, moved us into a nice suburban neighborhood in Yorba Linda. He was a successful stockbroker. A couple of years into that, he made a couple of mistakes in the stock market, and he lost everything. Well, as a kid, I wasn't privy to the information of what happened. All I could feel was the tension and the anger. And so I acted out, like any teenage kid would do. And I found trouble, or it found me. And it seemed like everything I did was wrong. I was in trouble at school. I was in trouble at home. The local police department knew me on a first-name basis. I was in trouble. My dad had left the stock market and had to find a way to feed his 5 kids. And so he started a carpet installation service. Quite a step down in status. But he was a proud man and he had to do something to feed his family. Well, everything came to a head when I was about 15 years old. I got in a fight in my woodshop class, and a big guy took my hat, started to run with it, and I knew I couldn't catch him or handle fighting with him or anything, so I slid a desk across the floor and it hit him across the top of the knees. He went down really hard, his face hit the desk next to him, and he split his head open. I got a 3-day suspension from school. He got a trip to the nurse's office and about 10 stitches. Well, I knew the school was going to basically give me 3 days of vacation. Not my dad. He said he was raised a farm boy. And when it came to disciplining his kids, he usually knew what to do. And for me, that was to put me to work. So it just so happened that he had a job going in downtown Los Angeles, a carpet installation on a high-rise building. And it was going to be at night. So for 3 days, I went to work with him in that building. The first night, things started to go okay. And about 2 o'clock in the morning, I felt like I had enough. I wanted to get out. I wanted to get away. I was angry, and we started arguing, and I said, I'm out of here, and I walked out the door. I wanted to get some fresh air. What I really wanted to do was go smoke some pot, because that's how I dealt with my problems. When I opened the door to the darkness outside in downtown Los Angeles, I saw a world that wasn't anything that I'd been used to. A long-haired little kid from Yorba Linda doesn't get to see the dark side of the city very often. As I walked through the streets, it was dark, it was gray. There were people laying in the sidewalks, laying in the gutter. People walking down the sidewalk with hollow eyes. It was like a black and white movie, a horror movie. You could hear the screeching of brakes and horns honking. and people babbling. There was a lady walking across the other side of the street yelling something about the end of the world and how God was going to kill us all. And I stopped at a stoplight to push the button to get the light to turn green so I could cross, and I heard a voice over my shoulder, and there was an older man with a suit and a hat. He said, "Hey kid, where are you going?" I tried to ignore him. I thought, last thing I want is some crazy homeless guy making friends with me. I tried to stand there and pretend he wasn't there, and he said it again. He says, "Hey kid, where are you going?" He looked troubled. I turned back with a rough voice. I said, "Nowhere." I tried to ignore him, and the light turned green. I started walking, and he stayed with me, and he started to talk. And he wanted to carry on a conversation, and you know, I was looking for help. I knew my life wasn't in order, and I thought, well, I'll listen. He started talking about how my life could be better if I only knew the rules to life. Well, that went on for about a block, and I stopped at a place to get some coffee, and he sat there and he talked to me the whole time. I just shook my head. I thought, okay, I'll humor him. After about an hour, I thought, you know, I better get back to work. And so I ended the conversation, and I said, I've got to go. He says, "Don't worry." He says, "I'll be here tomorrow night if you're on." So I went back to work, and the more I thought about what he said, the more I realized that he might be right. Maybe there was a better way to live. But what does an old homeless man know? The next day, I managed to get out of the job about 2 o'clock in the morning again. I went down and I found him again. This time I said, I'm going to tell him what I think. And I told him, I said, life's not fair. People pick on me. Things don't work for me. I'm a victim. He said, sure you are. I said, I want to run away from it all. I want to stay stoned so I don't have to face it. He says, running away might be a good idea, except for one thing. He says, you have to take yourself with you. I go, wow, what's that supposed to mean? Again, we ended the conversation, and I left. I said, I've got to go back to work. The next night, I thought, what's the chances I can find this guy again? Because now I started thinking, maybe there was something to what he had to say. So I went out again, and there he was. And this time I told him, I said, listen, I've only got a little bit of time. I've got to go back to work. And I'm not coming back. This is the last night that I'm going to be in Los Angeles. He says, okay. He says, I have something for you. And he pulled out of his coat pocket a little blue book. And on the front of it said, Buck Up by Orlo. What the heck is that? He says, there's secrets in here. Little suggestions of how to run your life better. He says, I want you to take this and do something with it. I said, sure. He says, but you got to make me one promise, that when it works in your life, that you'll share it with other people. I was a 15-year-old kid. I could make all the promises in the world. Who's going to hold me to it? So I took the little book, and I read it. And sure enough, there were things in there that helped me. I started to apply some of these lessons right away, and I quit smoking pot. I thought the last thing I need to be is stupid and lazy. I got enough problems. I started to treat people differently, and things started to go better for me. I went back to my high school, and I graduated with my class, which was not easy, being that I was so far behind. Life kept getting better and better. I got married. I had 5 kids. I ran a successful carpet business. As I say that, I'm thinking, what does that even mean? I actually started as a carpet layer, and I worked my way up all the way through to custom sanding of hardwood floors. I ran a very successful floor covering business for 35 years. I raised my 5 kids, bought homes, and I did well. And along the way, I was met with different challenges, and each time I would take the secrets from that little book and I would apply them. One day I got a traffic ticket on highway patrol, and I didn't think I deserved it. So I went to the courthouse a few days later, and I wanted to grumble, I wanted to complain, I wanted to see the judge. And when I pulled into the Orange County Courthouse parking lot, I saw lines of tarps along the wall, gray and blue shopping carts parked in between them. There were homeless people living in the parking lot. So as I walked through the parking lot, there's a stairway to get up to the court building. And when I got to the top of the stairs, I met a man face to face who looked kind of like me. He had blue jeans and work boots, flannel shirt, and a ball cap, but much older. And he looked really road worn. But he said to me, he says, "Excuse me, sir. Do you have some money? Could you spare a couple bucks? I'm hungry." I said, "No. You see, I left my money in my truck so I could pay the gate toll on the way out." And I went into the court to grumble, and as I stood in that line, I thought, I have so much to be grateful for. I have a truck to drive to work. I have a job. I have a family, warm, safe, at home in their beds. I have nothing to complain about. I paid my fines and I left the court building. You see, I applied the things that I learned and things worked out well. But for 2 weeks, I couldn't get this guy's face out of my view. In my mind, every time I closed my eyes, I could see this gentleman's face, his blue eyes, his flannel shirt, his blue jeans. I thought, I have to do something. But what? One day, I couldn't sleep. At 4 o'clock in the morning, I was sitting in my garage at my workbench. That's where I read quietly because the kids wouldn't bother me. And I looked across, and I had a flatbed truck, and I had Coleman camp stoves and buckets of wheat flour that my Mormon neighbor talked me into buying in case the world came to an end. I thought, that's what I'll do. I'll go feed these people breakfast. So I told a couple of friends, and they gathered with me. And one Saturday morning, we met at 6 o'clock in the morning, and with a 5-gallon paint bucket, a cordless drill, and I know a big drill like this, and a mortar mixer, I was making pancake mix in a 5-gallon bucket. I had my frying pans laid out, and as I cooked, a young girl that was my kid's babysitter, her name was Heather, standing there, she was handing plates to people as they came. And I thought there were 30, 40, maybe 50 people in this parking lot that needed food. When we got done, a couple of hours later, I asked Heather, I said, "How many people do you think we fed?" She says, "Well, I've been counting because I've got to number the plates." She goes, "There was 350 people who came through this line." I was stunned. You see, I acted on something that I thought I needed to do. I had no idea what would happen. Had I known there were 350 people there, I would have quit before I ever started. Sometimes you just have to do what you're called to do. Life was full of instances like this. I don't have time to tell all of it, but I have many stories like that. But my philosophies, my theories were going to be challenged yet again. Now, before you think that I lived a life of Pollyanna, it was a friend that told me I lived a charmed life, because he said everything that happens to you seems to turn out right. And he was right. But I've seen death. I've had parents die of Alzheimer's, Lou Gehrig's disease, and one of cancer on both sides of the family. I had a friend who burned to death in his own house, a mentor of mine. Heather died of a brain tumor at 30 years old. So I have seen hard times, but I've decided to apply lessons to these hard times. And whatever happens to me, I have a choice of how to respond. But my theories were going to be challenged yet again. Just a month ago, one of my 5 boys, Samuel, who's 25, called me on a Friday morning. He says, "Dad, I don't know what to do. I'm at T Street, which is a local surf spot in San Clemente." He says, "My truck got stolen. The bad thing is, I'm in the middle of moving and everything I own is in it. Would you come down here and be with me?" I said, "Sure." So I dropped what I was doing. I went down to T Street, and as he was filling out the stolen vehicle report with the local police department, I watched how he was pacing and angry. He was left with a swimming suit and his cell phone. Everything else that he owned was gone. He was angry. My children, all 5 of my boys, are like little Vikings. Easy to get angry. So when he was done with the officer, I said, "Sam," I said, "how are you doing?" He goes, "I don't know what to do." He says, I'm angry. I want to hunt that guy down and kill him." I said, "And you have a right to be angry. You've been violated." I said, "But you have a choice now of how to respond to this. The anger and the resentment and the hatred that you have for this young man who stole your truck is only going to hurt you. You see, he had befriended this guy at Starbucks that morning before he went surfing. He bought him coffee, he bought him food, and he offered to let him go surfing with him because he had an extra surfboard. So after a couple hours of surfing with this other young man, the guy got up and walked away. And when he didn't come back, Sam went back up to his truck and it was gone. He says, "Dad, I want to kill him. How could anybody do such a thing?" I said, "You have a right to be angry. But would you try something for me?" He goes, "What?" I said, "This is going to sound completely irrational, maybe even stupid. But I'm going to ask you to do something. I'm going to ask you to exchange that hate and anger that you have towards this homeless guy that stole your truck and try to replace it with love and kindness." Because how am I supposed to do that? I just want to kill him. I said, "Yeah, I know it's not going to be easy." I said, "Look, you've already lost everything. You can't get any worse. You're healthy, you're young, you know you're going to recover from this. It's just stuff. Let it go." For 5 hours, I sat with him and we went through what was going on and how he could apply something different than just anger and hate. He agreed to try to do that. I let him go with a friend later that night, and the following Monday I called him in the middle of the afternoon and said, "So tell me what's happening." He says, "Dad, you won't believe it." Well, you see, I've lived with some of this concept for a lot of years, and I very well could believe it. I said, "Tell me about it. Tell me what happened." He says, "They arrested the guy Sunday night at a routine traffic stop. I got my truck back. Everything is still in it except a couple of pieces that I can track down through a lost. He had a couple instruments stolen that were gone." He says, "I can find them through Craigslist lost." Yeah. He says, "I'm not worried about that." He says, "I think there's $100 in my wallet that's gone." I said, "So how do you feel, Sam?" He goes, "I'm amazed." Yes. He says, "Thank you so much for helping me through this. But how did you know?" I said, "I didn't know. There's no promises in life. Good things and bad things happen to all of us. It's how we respond." And I want to leave you with 3 things that I've learned. 3 out of several. The first thing that I've learned is we have control over our lives and everything in it if we choose to. Nobody can make us think a certain way unless we allow them. The second thing is, anytime you can, and especially when you can't, exchange hate and anger for love and kindness. And the third thing, let stuff go. And the worse it is, the more you need to let it go. I've suffered loss in people dying. I lost property. I lost a marriage. But I learned how to cope with these losses. I'm no different than anyone else. I long for the day when the only competition we have as human beings is in the level of kindness that we can show one another each day. Madam Chair.
So please take 2 minutes and fill out one of the blue forms for Michael. And then we're going to have feedback.
Please remember to fill the blue forms. Thank you.